All right, hi everyone. Hopefully you're watching this video at the very front end before you start diving into all of the resources that are here in this section of the module about analyzing qualitative data. So think of this as your space for like priming your attention and your energy for how do you come alongside some of the qualitative data that you collected. Now, I will say qualitative data here isn't just interviews. Right? Like obviously interviews are qualitative data. They're qualitative in nature as well as group interviews, but maybe you have qualitative data from some of your surveys or your questionnaires or your exit tickets or your checklists or your observations or your written reflections. Like you might have had a number of different creative and innovative ways of collecting qualitative data. I might say text data, but it doesn't mean it necessarily have to be text data. Like if you're engaging in observations and you're taking notes, like that's qualitative data. Your field notes are qualitative data. So this in general is, I want you to think in this module of anything that could be qualitative in nature. There are some other resources here in this analysis module about specifically analyzing surveys. And even though surveys are very qualitative in nature, we'll save that stuff for the survey and the survey module, so take a look at that. But here we're mostly talking about text data, talk data, things that are qualitative in nature, or either might have been open-ended, and you're not necessarily able to easily represent the data using like a number, right? So we'll go from there. So some of the, I need my mouse, my cursor. There we go. Some of the helpful like mindset shifts or things that I want you to start thinking about before you start diving into analyzing your qualitative data. Got some coaching for you. So one, your qualitative data holds the how and why behind your improvement work. Our qualitative data can sometimes show us some of the richness behind our participants' experiences, the nature of changes and shifts and influences of your change idea, of your intervention, that can be really powerful and really insightful beyond perhaps whatever surveys you might have collected or checklists and things like that. So while your outcome measures tell you what happened, your interviews and observations reveal why it happened that way and how participants actually experienced your intervention. So qualitative data can be so helpful there, right? Of understanding the how and the why behind some of your improvement work or your intervention. Now, you're not looking for interesting findings, you're looking for actionable insights. I can't tell you how often graduate students, when they, especially if this is like your very first big project and you start analyzing your qualitative data, you just start like open coding and you end up creating all these codes and analyses that are more about the things that stood out to you that are interesting. Sometimes I use the term like they might feel really flashy or they might feel really meaningful in a variety of different ways. However, if you don't keep your inquiry questions or you don't keep the goals of your PDSA cycle, the goals of your change idea and your improvement as your primary lens, then your analyses will be off. Your analyses won't be credible analyses. You'll be analyzing something with a whole different framework of like, well, this was interesting to me. Like, well, I'm glad it's interesting to you, but does it align with your framework? Does it align with why you're here doing this work as part of your PDSA cycle? Does it align with your inquiry questions? And if it does, then great. But if it's just interesting and doesn't, then you can save that for your side project, okay? So every step of this analysis should connect back to your understanding of your intervention's effectiveness and informing your next PDSA cycle. You want to think of everything should be pointing back to your theory of improvement, your driver diagram, even some of the concepts that you might have explored in contextualizing your trauma practice. Everything should be really narrowed down in scope and specific to your specific project and aims. There are some resources in here about this notion of barriers and facilitators or improvement gold. The challenges and supports that people describe aren't complaints or compliments. They're design specifications for making your intervention work better in your context. So I want you to think about that. Like there's something to whenever we engage with our intervention and you're asking participants how it was, how it went, it's so important to not only identify what some of those here barriers and facilitators were, the things where they got stuck, the things that they think could be better, the things that worked. It can be so affirming to hear participants say that something that you created as part of your intervention worked for them and helped them. That's like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself and I love it. And you just get all warm inside and validated, which is great. Have that physiological experience, but also see it beyond just compliments. Same thing, see the other things as beyond just complaints. Like you want to think about them for how they can make your intervention work better in your context, how you might be able to improve that intervention for, let's say, like your next PDSA cycle. Like what do you need to do differently, and what do you need to keep doing to ensure that you're trying to make the most impactful impact that you can, right? Your codes and categories. So part of qualitative data analysis is coding, and then we'll take all of those codes. You might have lots of codes, and then it can be helpful to group them into different categories so that you can like expand your data. You kind of break it up into all these little building blocks and pieces, and then you start to organize it. And when you organize it, you might have, I'm just going to say 100 codes, but you might organize those 100 codes into 5 categories. And so it's much easier to work with 5 categories, than 100 things, 100 codes. So let your codes and categories tell the story of your 30-day implementation. Okay, think like a detective gathering evidence about what made your intervention succeed, struggle, or surprise you. That means when you're analyzing your data, and there'll be coaching for this in the resources, when you're identifying your codes and your categories, you want to use words, phrases for codes and your categories that tell the story of your 30-day implementation. If I were to just read your codes and categories, I should be able to get a sense of what your PDSA cycle was like. What your intervention was, maybe not your PDSA cycle, I should say like your intervention, your change idea. I should get a sense of that. So this is where, as the analyst, you want to be really, I think the word I want to use is intentional. You want to be really intentional about how you are conceptualizing your data, how you're analyzing it, and the words and phrases you choose for codes and categories. Let it tell the story. And this is also huge. Resist the urge to jump to conclusions with just qualitative data. You're going to see a little notion of like, pause, hold on. Because I imagine that as part of your work, you've collected other pieces of data. You might have collected surveys, or maybe you counted things and you counted how things changed over time. You're going to develop a run chart and do a run chart analysis to see like what's the trend here? Are there any patterns? So resist the urge to jump to conclusions just with your interviews or just with your open-ended kind of comments in your survey. Your interpretations from this module are working hypotheses, these working suggestions, working assertions that will be strengthened, challenged, and refined when you integrate with other data sources. So, and I could say the other way around of like also resist the urge to jump to conclusions with just your survey data or with just your checklist data or whatever you're doing. So this idea of let some of your thinking here be preliminary in nature doesn't necessarily mean it's cursory, but it's preliminary. You're staying open. We have this term in creativity, this resistance to premature closure. Resist the urge to prematurely close off your analysis and identify your findings without thinking of all the other things, without creating space for everything to kind of come together and mix and merge. If I could give you 3 coaching tips, it'd be these. Stay connected to your improvement goals, your overarching aim, or the specific goals or aims you have for this change idea. Don't get lost in the mechanics of coding and categorizing. Your goal as part of this program is not to leave here being, a top-notch qualitative researcher. You're trying to instead use some of these qualitative research tools to be an improver, to be a leader who can innovate and improve systems in your organization. So constantly ask yourself, how does this help me understand whether my intervention worked and why? Every analysis decision should serve your improvement learning. So don't get too bogged down with coding and categorizing. Should you do it? Yes, absolutely. They're important steps. But as long as you're doing it in a way that's helping you address this question of how is this helping me understand how my intervention worked and why, that's what you like. That's the posture we want you to take here, especially when you're engaging in qualitative data analysis. Tip number 2, let participants' voices guide your analysis. Your participants are experts in their experiences, right? This is where we try to, in improvement, we try to take this this co-creator of meaning, like you're here alongside your participants. There's this collaborative nature in it, but let their voices stand out. Pay special attention to in vivo codes. You'll see there's suggestions of, remember, in vivo codes are codes of the participants' exact words, like exact phrases, and they're like standout phrases. They're unique in some way, and they're so unique that it's really that helps tell the story, right? It adds some personality to your code book. Participants often describe barriers, facilitators, and outcomes in ways that are more precise and actionable than academic language would be. So you might have engaged in, you did engage in, contextualizing your problem of practice, lots of literature, and literature has certain academic jargon for these phenomena, for these concepts that we experience in our problem of practice. But let your participants' words also carry a lot of clout, carry a lot of weight, and a lot of power. They might use a different phrase or describe it in a different way. Let that help also guide your analysis. And then 3, embrace the messiness before seeking clarity. Qualitative data analysis, whenever you're analyzing, it's not as straightforward as survey analysis. It's in just finding the median and the mode of, this one survey response of your Likert scale, right? It's a lot different. There isn't this exact step-by-step process. This is where your expertise and your connection with your problem of practice and your environment really should guide you. So I know, and you probably also experience this maybe briefly in your qualitative course, that qualitative data will feel chaotic at first. Don't rush to clean it up or make it neat. Sit with the complexity for a while. Your best insights often come from patterns that aren't immediately obvious. Oftentimes, if I'm working on I do a lot of qualitative work, and if I'm working with qualitative data analysis, I will sit with my analyses for many weeks, and I might code something and I just keep thinking about it for a week, and I will have aha moments when I'm on a run or when I'm driving in my car in the grocery store. Like, you have to let these things incubate. You have to really think about them. And we as humans, and especially those who sign up for doctoral programs, usually we really value order, and we really value things working together and solving things and fixing things and it being kind of clean and compartmentalized. But oftentimes with qualitative data, it's a little messier. It's a little bit more chaotic. And qualitative folks in the field will say it's the messiness and the chaoticness that is actually more reflective of how we experience this thing in the real world. Like, our problem of practice isn't very neat. It doesn't fit in boxes. Now, in academic articles, it looks like it fits in certain boxes with headings and how we organize our writing. But in reality, your problem of practice is really messy. So it makes sense that your qualitative data is messy, meaning there's contradictions. There's ideas that get started and don't finish. If you're interviewing people, you will see that we jump in conversation often, or even sentence structures or incomplete sentences. Like, this is how real life works. So resist the urge to make your transcripts really clean. Resist the urge to take out all the likes and ums. AI, if you're using AI to help transcribe, it sometimes does that for you. But let it be messy, and that's okay. It's also okay to have findings that contradict each other. That's, again, indicative of our humanness. And so try to resist the urge to let it be super clean and super clear right from the start. It's going to be a little messy from the start, and that's okay. That's expected. Welcome it. All right, so dive into these resources, take them slowly, work through them as you need to, reach out to your dissertation chair as you need support and help. But I hope you found, come back to this This video, if you need to re-listen to it again, you don't have to always watch it. You can press play and just listen to it. Like anything that you need to help get you in the mindset for analyzing your qualitative data might be really helpful. So again, it is here for you. You might want to come back to it. All right, good luck.